Welcome to another edition of our Four Questions Journalist Spotlight. We are talking today with Collin Kelley, who is the editor of Atlanta Intown newspaper. Good afternoon, Collin. Thanks for taking time.
Mitch, how are you?
I'm good.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, I'm glad you're able to make it. I've been meaning to kind of catch up with you a little bit, so I'm glad we were able to find the time. So, well, let's jump right in. So you are the editor of Atlanta Intown.
Yes.
And I know you are part of a larger newspaper group. So give us a little background about kind of where the newspaper came from and where you are now.
Sure. Well, Atlanta Intown has been around. We're in our 27th year now. We're in our 26th, headed into our 27th year. So we've been around. We started back in 1994 as a small monthly newspaper just in Virginia Highland. We were called 30306 then. And so we morphed into Atlanta Intown in the late 90s. And I joined the staff as the editor in 2002. So I've been here for quite a number of years. And we were purchased by Springs Publishing in 2013, and Springs Publishing also owns and operates the Reporter newspapers on the north side of town, the Buckhead Reporter, Sandy Springs, Dunwoody, and Brookhaven. And we also have Atlanta Senior Life, which is our newspaper for active seniors. So we're part of that. We're part of that group of Springs Publishing.
Excellent. So 20 years for you with the paper,
Almost, yeah.
Almost 20 years. So what is your background? What did you do? What were you doing before this? Well,
paper? Before that, I cut my teeth. I originally started. I started really young. I was given an incredible opportunity by a great journalist by the name of Nancy Rockmore, who has sadly passed on now. She was with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and she was one of the editors for the old Atlanta Weekly Sunday magazine. So I was 16 years old, and I just wrote her and said, I want to write for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I would love to write an article for the Sunday magazine. And she said, well, do you have an idea for an article? And I did. And it happened to be, I wrote the first article for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. This is my claim to fame. I wrote the first article for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution about the effort to restore and save the Margaret Mitchell House.
Ah, okay.
In Midtown. And that was in 1986. So from there, I did a few more pieces for the Sunday, the Atlanta Weekly magazine, as it was called then. And then people took notice, and I started getting other freelance gigs. And then I was hired as a reporter for the old Fayette Sun, the Sun newspapers that used to be in DeKalb and some of the counties around.
Right.
And then I was the assistant editor for a short-lived business magazine called the Job Journal. And when that folded, the executive editor for the Marietta Daily Journal and the neighbor newspapers got in touch and said, I hear you're looking for a job, and would you like to come work for us? And so I worked for the Marietta Daily Journal and the neighbor newspapers for 10 years before I joined Atlanta Intown.
Okay. So how would you describe kind of the mission and focus of Atlanta Intown?
We're hyper local, and we're very eclectic, but we have a focus on, if anyone's ever picked up or looked at Atlanta Intown online, we cover the arts, culture, food, real estate, business, and people doing good things in the neighborhood. We cover a lot of nonprofits. We try to keep up with what the schools are doing. This year, it's been a lot about the pandemic and the racial injustice protest, and then now with the election. So we're pretty eclectic, and we try to cover things that are of interest and very specific to the community. And that's been our mission ever since we were 30306 back in 1994, is to present stories to the community that you won't read anywhere else. And we have continued that mission to bring those stories about people and places and businesses and organizations who are doing interesting and unique things in the community that you just won't read anywhere else but in Atlanta Intown.
So is there a are there geographic boundaries? Are you like inside 285? What would you say?
Well, we're a little tighter than that. I mean, downtown, midtown, Virginia Highland, Inland Park, Grant Park, Druid Hills, Buckhead, up to Buckhead, and even out toward Decatur, Kirkwood, Lake Claire. So just, these very tight-knit in-town neighborhoods around the core of downtown, the west side and west end. So right around the core of downtown, that's really where our coverage is.
Good.
And we're mail to homes, and we're also in boxes and racks. If you go out to your coffee shop or one of your favorite shops, you might see a rack or a box there. And then we have a huge, a big online presence as well. People read our digital edition of the magazine, and of course our website and social media. We update them many, many times a day. So
yeah, I think it's important for people to understand where what your geographic focus is and what it isn't. Sure. So if people are watching, then they're not thinking that they can pitch you a story about Cobb County or something happening out in Conyers.
We get those from quite often, actually.
Yeah.
People being in town, and we do try to hold pretty close to our goal of just covering people and places and businesses and organizations that are right here in the core of the city.
Yeah. Okay. And your the website is what? Tell me the website.
AtlantaIntownpaper.com.
Okay.
And then you can find us on Facebook at Atlanta Intown, on Instagram at Atlanta Intown, and then on Twitter we're ATL Intown Paper on Twitter.
Okay. All right. So I'll add into the bottom. I'll add the websites sure. and other URLs. Sure. So I was like, lately I've been asking the question, how has your reporting changed because of the pandemic? And obviously you're covering the pandemic, but how you're able to work and do your job, how has that changed?
Well, I mean, it's all been done from my home here. I live in the Old Fourth Ward, and I have actually not been to our office since late February. We got the March issue out the door, and then everything kind of started happening, and I haven't been back to the office since the end of February. And everything I've done from here, of course, a lot of phone calls, a lot of Zoom, and a lot of emails. And so that's really how we've conducted it, is just online. And, with how things are looking and how things are going now, we may be doing that for a while to come. Well,
and from what I'm seeing of the paper, that seems to be working.
It does. I don't think we've missed a beat. We didn't produce a print issue in May because we just didn't think anyone would be out picking them up, because that was when we were deep in the heart of it. But we did a digital version of the May issue, which I thought went really well. And we had some of our biggest readership of that online digital issue in May. And our advertisers stuck with us, which we were incredibly grateful for. And so we haven't skipped a beat. We've just kept going right through it.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of magazines that kind of skip the print edition and just did that kind of digital format of their print edition. Sure. And sent it out there for exactly that reason, because people weren't out there, the offices weren't open, right. The distribution sites just weren't getting the traffic, that kind of thing. Yeah. All right, so what are so you talked about kind of some of the topics that you've been covering. Are there topics that you kind of have in the back of your head that you want to cover in the next couple of months?
Well, I mean, we're going to be following the runoff in January, because that is the topic on everyone's mind. We've got a little period here where they're doing the recount, and then we have a little time here. But I think the runoff, the lead up to that's going to be quite a whirlwind, and it's going to be very interesting. So that we're also looking at more coverage of what's happening on the west side and down in Summerhill. And we've got our eye on what they're going to be at Ponce City Market with the new expansion they just announced there, and also in Kirkwood with what's going on out there with Pullman Yard. So there's a lot of things bubbling up.
Yeah, and I think we might have said this, but you're a monthly, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so but then on the social, you're kind of filling in those stories that
if you go to our website, you will see that, there's something new or many things new depending on what's happening in the news every single day. So although our print publication is monthly, I think of us as a daily news organization because we're often breaking news. We're doing updates when all the craziness around the election just a week or so ago was going on. We were doing constant live updates both on our website and on our social media. And we got, our traffic was kind of sky high because people were looking for some really concise information about what was happening with the recount and the vote tally. And people have started looking to us, especially during the pandemic and when all of the demonstrations were happening over the summer after George Floyd. We've just seen our traffic online just increase amazingly because people are looking to us for factual information, and we are striving to bring that. So
for the print edition, what's your lead time? So if you're looking at a December 1st print edition, when do you need story ideas, stories done, I like to have them several months out. I mean, we're working on the December issue right now. As a matter of fact, we go into production for that issue tomorrow morning. So I'm actually working. I've been working this weekend. But I like to have story ideas several months in advance. If there's a breaking story, we will work right up to the last minute to try to get something in the print. But for the print, we also try to, since the magazine is going to be sitting on people's coffee tables for a month, it's going to be in racks for a month, the digital issue will be up for a month. We try to present stories and features in the magazine that kind of don't have such a time constraint, that people can, if they've got it on the magazine, they can pick it up and see, oh, that's going to be happening December 23rd, or that's going to be happening. So it's just something you can hang on to and constantly refer back to for information about things that are happening all month long. And okay.
And then if you want to know what's happening right now, you go to our social media or you go to our website.
All right. So this is the hard question now. I gave you a heads up. So what is the coolest thing about you that I think people would be excited to know about?
Well, I don't know how cool it is, but when I'm not doing this, I'm also a poet and a novelist. And I've written 5 collections of poetry and 3 novels, and traveled all over the world doing readings and sitting on panels, and I guest lectured at Oxford University in England once, and so it's been a very interesting life away from being a journalist. But as I said, I've been a print journalist since 1986. I think that's pretty damn cool because that's a long career these days in print journalism, and I am. And you're still a print journalist. Yeah. Yeah, and you're still doing it. So that's pretty good. I think that's pretty cool. That I've been able to work with such a great team, and that I'm still able to work in print journalism when things are constantly changing in media and journalism. So yeah.
So you mentioned your team. So I know you've got a kind of a cadre of kind of contributing writers that you work with regularly, but you're kind of the main staff person, correct?
Yeah, technically yes. We have a sales team, and we also have a great graphic designer who helps put the issues together every month. But it really is our contributing writers. Many of us, they've been with us for years and years and years. Sally Bethea, who writes our Above the Waterline column, who used to be the Chattahoochee Riverkeeper, Melody Harklerode, who does our column on architecture, Timothy Sullivan, who writes Timmy Daddy, who's been with us for so many years, and there's just Donna Lewis and Claire Ritchie, who are some of our general assignment contributors. So yeah, we just have a really tight-knit team, and I'm so happy that they have stuck with us because I love that continuity that we bring every month in Intown.
That's great. All right, so kind of some fun questions. So, I always like to ask, what's the last book that you've read, and I'm gonna put the caveat for you that it can't be one that you've written.
That I've written. Well, you know what? I'm actually reading. I would show it to you, but my computer is sitting on top of it right now to kind of boost it up. I'm actually right in the middle of this gigantic book called Sweet Dreams, the story of the New Romantics, which is a nonfiction book from England about the music scene in England in the 70s and 80s. So
cool. All right.
Culture Club and punk and Duran Duran and Sade, and so it's really fun. It's like an oral history, and it's huge. It's a huge book. So I'm about halfway through that now. So I feel like I've read 2 books just working through that, but it's really good. So I highly recommend it.
Okay. I hate when my book club assigns a 900-page book.
This one, I think, is about 700 pages, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So favorite Atlanta restaurant?
Oh gosh, that's tough. Well, I'm a traditionalist. I love the Colonnade. I'm so happy. I love those rolls, and I love the turkey and dressing and the salmon croquettes and the fried chicken. So I'm kind of old school that way. I love going to the Colonnade, and I'm really happy that they're back open and they're serving again, and they've got their outdoor setup. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Colonnade.
All right. Favorite guilty pleasure?
I don't know if it's guilt. I mean, I love to travel. I'm a travel junkie. I have wanderlust and that, but I also, and I don't think a lot of people know this, I collect vintage Star Wars toys. I know that makes me incredibly geeky, but I've got my original Star Wars toys that I kept as a kid, and I just kind of slowly been adding to that collection. So I'm always looking at yard sales and online, and
yeah, I might move that to the coolest thing about you.
Oh, really? Oh, well, yeah. I love my vintage Star Wars toys. So yeah.
Do you have one nearby? I've got.
I don't. They're all in the other rooms. Oh, I love that. Yeah. See, all my stuff's from like 77, 78, right from the original trilogy. I've just kind of focused on that.
All right, that's great. That's great. All right. And you said you like to travel. What's your favorite local getaway? Somewhere in Georgia you like to go?
I love going to Savannah. I actually was able to get away to Savannah for a weekend over the summer. I had a feeling my mental health was crumbling a bit from sitting in this apartment for so many months. House on Ivy Island was kind of off the beaten path and socially distant.
So the last question is, what's your favorite kind of non-work hobby?
Non-work hobby. I really do. Oh no, go ahead.
I was going to say sometimes they overlap with your favorite guilty pleasure. So
that's true. I enjoy doing my own personal writing. I enjoy doing research for if I'm working on a novel or writing a short story or I'm writing a poem. I do a lot of research into that, so I do that. I'm also a big Netflix and Amazon junkie. I've just started watching the new season of The Crown that released over the weekend, so I'm already a couple episodes into that. And I'm a huge music. Like I said, I'm reading the book about the music in the UK, but I collect vinyl records. Also, I'm a big vinyl geek, so I love listening to music, and those are my pleasures.
All right. So in terms of your poetry and your writing, let's say poetry, do you have a theme or something that flows through all of your work or some of your work?
Yeah, I mean, I think, anyone who's read my work and has read about me doing the work, I have a big thing for pop culture, especially pop culture in the 70s and the 80s. And so a lot of that is a through line through a lot of my work. Going back and referencing old films and music and things that happened during that time, that's kind of a running theme through all of my work, I think. And I'm working on another collection right now. I'm kind of putting it together. That's going to be out hopefully in 2023. That's what we're aiming for. It kind of has that same kind of pop culture feel about it. A lot of it is the poems were written when I was in California. And so I'm calling it my Joan Didion collection because it's kind of observing pop culture and things going on in San Francisco and LA. And so a lot of that kind of weaves through all these poems that I'm working on.
Okay, awesome, excellent. Well, we've been talking with Collin Kelley, who is the editor of Atlanta Intown, and looking forward to seeing what your take on the runoffs in January. I think everyone's going to have their own opinions on where all that's going to go.
Well, Mitch, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me. I really enjoy watching your podcast and of course getting your newsletter too. So thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Collin. We appreciate it. And this has been another edition of our 4 Questions Journalist Spotlight. Tune in next week. We'll have another segment. Until then.